What we're going to do now is to import an R script. So if you will go to the Moodle page again, and if you look under this week's files, you will see a file that's called crabscript.r. So you might want to pause the video here while you load that into R. But once you get that, then you're going to find a script that looks like this here. And what I've done, it's a fairly simple script, but what I've done is to annotate it so we can see what every line does. And what we're going to do is to start by adding a particular package, and this package is called capital MASS, all uppercase. So we're going to run that, and so hit requiring mass, and so you can see the package has been uh, activated, and there it is. So, and then I'm going to load a particular data set that is found in the mass package. It's called crabs, and I do that, and um, crabs is coming up here, as you can see. It's being promised to us, but it will show up sooner or later. But it's actually available even now. So I can go ahead and ask, well, what is the structure of crabs? What do we have in there? And what we see is that we have two grouping variables this time. There's one that is species, and there's one that's sex. So we have two different species, and of course there's both male and female. So we actually have four distinct kinds of crabs here, two species, two sexes. And then we have other variables here, and these refer to claw length and claw width, and I forget what the other variables are there. But what we want to do is to take a look at what the averages and other statistics are for each sex by species combination. So let's take a look at the first few rows of data. So that's why we're looking at the head of crabs, and so we see that there. And so there's species B, males, and at the top we're just going to get BMs. If we take a look at the tail, you could do that. We would see the end of the file. And remember, we were using the psych package because that's very good at partitioning data by a category variable or a grouping variable. So what we're going to do is to require psych. So make sure that's activated. And what I've done here is to set up a object, and I'm calling it by period sex period species. So it just tells me that I'm classifying the crab data by both species and by gender. And I'm using the describe command again, and I'm telling R that I'm using the crabs data set. But this time I'm using two grouping variables instead of just the one. And so I have to change my command a little bit, and I'm going to put list here, and then I'm going to give my two grouping variables, crabs.spa, which is here one factor, and crabs $sex there. So what I'm going to do, and I've just described what I'm doing here. The summary statistics are broken down by species and sex, and I'm placing the data in an object that I'm calling by period sex period species. So I'm going to run that, and again, nothing is going to happen there because all the data are in my object, and I need to have the object printed out in order to see that. So I go down and I type the object out, and I do that, and but lo and behold, I get my very nice table here. So the table is broken down. I've got species B, females, and so I've got all the different morphological measurements, the FL, RW, CL, CW, BD, all of those are measured here, and I'm getting the median and the trim mean and MAD and range and skew and so forth. So I'm getting the same thing for species O, females. Then I'm getting the same thing for species B, males, and species O, males. So a very nice breakdown of the data, and lots of good information. And it's done very concisely. All of this just done in a few lines of code thanks to the use of a particular package. And by the way, I should point out that well, let's just get used to clearing the console. So remember, to clear the console, we're just going to hit Control L, and now the console is cleared. And that's fine because I can always recreate what's in the console by running what's in the source window. The source window is where I want to have a permanent record. So I want to always save my source code so I can use that information later. But when we were working through the source code here, what we were doing is going line by line. But what we can do is just to highlight everything, and I can either hit run or I could hit command return. I'll just go ahead and hit run here, and you can see that I have essentially done all of those commands at once. So we ran the whole thing at once, and I got to the endpoint here. But you can see how this would be very useful if you had a different data set and you wanted to break down the data by some grouping variable. Then you could simply take the source code that you have here, and so maybe you're going to have a different data set altogether. But all you would do would just be to put in whatever the name of your data set is, and then you might want to take a look at the headers or whatever, but you're going to use the psych package, and then you're going to describe by, and you would have my data, and then you're going to give whatever the grouping variable or variables are, and then without having to memorize this code, knowing that the code worked previously for the crabs data set, then you would be able to modify the code or the script to do exactly what you needed. So what we're going to be doing next week is following a lot of code to develop different kinds of graphics. And what you will find is that you can save those scripts and modify them. So no matter what kind of data set you have, you can modify the script to accommodate your particular data set, so you can use scripts over and over and over again to produce really high quality graphics without having to have a whole lot of R code memorized.